It'll be just a few seconds. It's a new stove and I don't... Oh no, everyone's in the wrong seats. Everybody up. Philip, Miles, Sandy, Allie, me, and Darian. Fletcher when he gets here. Felix if he ever gets here. And Travis.
All right, everybody. I hope you like your beer tasting good. This happens to be the first pitcher of Travis Wheat. Ta-da.
So you brewed this yourself?
Oh, well, Allie, Sheedy, I brewed it myself.
My name is Chris Reed, and I co-wrote Highball with Noah Baumbach and Carlos Jacot, and I also played Travis.
My name is Lauren Katz. I played Diane in Highball.
My name is John Leer, and I played Miles on Highball.
I'm Rae Dawn Chong, and I play Rae Dawn Chong in Highball.
Hi, I'm Peter Bogdanovich.
I'm Dean Cameron, and I played Don the Magician in Highball.
Hi, I am Joel Kastelberg, and I produced Highball.
Highball is about a group of friends and the changes that happen to them over a year as seen through 3 different parties at Travis and Diane's house, which is a married couple who's a married couple friend of the friends.
It would be interesting if we could create a salon, a community for our friends to exchange ideas on art and philosophy. I wish we had more French chums. In the early 90s, I became a part of an improvisational group called Ed in Chicago. And I was in that group with Carlos and John Leer.
I met Carlos at Second City. We were both taking classes there. And vis-a-vis a friend of mine, Jerry Saslow, introduced me to Carlos. And much later, we formed an improv company was formed called Ed. And Carlos and I were both in that. So that my connection to everybody else was through Carlos.
Noah, Carlos, and I all met in college. We all went to Vassar College together and became really good friends. Did a lot of different stuff there. And we did a lot of improv. We did a lot of plays. And Carlos and I graduated a year before Noah. When Noah graduated, Noah came out to Chicago. His friends Matt and Bo came out to Chicago. Our friend Jason Blum, who later on became Blumhouse, the creator Blumhouse, the owner of Blumhouse. We were all in Chicago at one point. And Carlos and I had moved there. I'm from Chicago originally. Carlos moved there in Chicago, where, again, that's where Carlos met John Leer. And then and Lauren Katz, who later became my wife, who played Diane, my wife in the movie. So all this stuff was happening in Chicago.
So Lauren and Carlos and I were in this improv company that had its day in the sun, was really kind of, in a lot of ways, really sort of groundbreaking. And the 3 of us ended up forming an improv trio, and we performed a lot together. We did Steppenwolf and the Organic Theater and a comedy festival in Montreal and out here in LA. Pretty successful as far as improv comedy troupes go.
At the time, the goal for us when we were working in Ed was simply to generate material with like-minded performers in an improvisational format in a way that wasn't stemming from the notion that it was all about fast, witty, clever, kind of banter. So a lot of our work was relationship-based, spatial, oftentimes patient, oftentimes not, but we were really drawn to it as kind of a way to merge our kind of theater background in with improvisation.
You have got to calm down.
No, I will not calm down, Travis. I've got a room full of hungry people out there. They're snacking on pistachios. That's not the way I was
your
raised.
reaction, and I can see by your eyes that we can eliminate Philip.
Well, why didn't you try and cater something?
I want him to
try and do
go.
something.
Please, I want him to go.
Oh, come on.
If you love me, you'll kill him.
Oh.
I want him to
buddy.
Chris and Carlos and Noah, they all went to school together and had been acting together and writing together, performing together for years. They performed together. Noah performed in those days, and he wrote with them. So yeah, they have a long history of performance and writing together.
So Noah, Carlos, and I began writing. We would workshop Fifth Year, which was called Fifth Year, which is Kicking and Screaming. Workshop. We'd all switch cast. We'd all switch parts and do all this, etc. And it was always the assumption that we would try and produce that ourselves. And Jason Blum was going to be a producer on it, and our friend Jeremy Kramer. Those were the two original producers who were gonna make it. But Noah eventually ended up meeting up with Joel Kastelberg, and I can't remember how the two of them got together, but he became the original, the producer on Kicking and Screaming.
I met Noah because Noah's brother went to school with a writer of a film that I produced called Bodies, Rest, and Motion. And I met Noah while we were shooting a film called Sleep With Me and liked him immensely and thought the script was great. It was initially called Fifth Year.
So we had been writing, messing around and workshopping those scenes, and then started to think about writing another movie that we wanted to do if Kicking Screaming happened. Then just that was more Kicking Screaming. It was more of Noah's movie, and a kind of coming of age, straight kind of movie. And then Carlos and Noah and I would write these sort of more zany, like movies, sort of like something like The State would make, or like like Broken Lizard, or whatever those guys are. Like more of a fun ensemble type movie that we were all doing.
Yeah, well, I've been doing a little research. Now, we all know how old Mozart was when he did all that.
Like one.
And Keats, big poet Keats was dead by 24. And Tracy Austin, when she started playing, she was tiny. I went to 15 in love with her, if you know what I mean. Ace her deuce.
I'd like to fuck her on the tennis court if you get my meaning.
Yeah.
So we wrote Highball together, and continued writing it when Noah set up Kicking and Screaming in LA. Because I remember Carlos and I legitimately writing scenes at the farmer's market in LA for Highball while we were filming Kicking and Screaming. So we had these relationships now with Eric Stoltz and Parker Posey was in that movie. There was sort of something going on, and that movie did well. Like, I don't know if it did well. I mean, I'm meaning like it didn't make $1 million, but it was well received. And so Noah was then able to put together his second movie, which was Mr. Jealousy. While we were doing that, Noah's like, I'm going to try and see if I can bootleg this small film on the end. Or we'll try and do Highball on the end of Jealousy.
Well, Noah had a wise idea of linking a script that he and Carlos had written together on, tagging it onto the end of Mr. Jealousy and saying, hey, let's do this project, but give me 6 extra days with the cast and crew, and I'm going to, punch out another feature.
So I went to the foreign sales agent who did the foreign sales on Mr. Jealousy, told her we wanted to do this. Her name's Kathy Morgan, by the way. And Kathy Morgan said, great, go for it. I'll arrange it. Our bank luckily said, great, go for it. And we had the money. And I think it was about 2 weeks after we wrapped Mr. Jealousy, we shot Highball.
My understanding is that Carlos and Noah and Chris kind of wrote Highball together. That's my understanding. I could be wrong about that. The reason I know that is because those three and I were working on a Western together right around the same time. And I think Noah was just, looking to do some stuff on the side that was just pure fun. And so I think he realized, and the production behind Mr. Jealousy realized that, hey, maybe we can shoot a feature in like, I think it was like a week or 2 weeks, maybe. Do it really fast, one location, and we can kind of package them together in terms of the financing. And so everybody worked for, minimum, whatever it was. And we shot it all. I think it was a week. Yeah, it was 1 week. And it was crazy.
Hey, buddy. You looking for me?
Sure, why not?
Hey, I apologize. I haven't been very social tonight, but I'm kind of hiding out.
I think it's good you're hiding out. People are pretty uncomfortable having you here.
Yeah. Well, screw them, right? Right? We can stay here, and it's like that other party's not even going on out there.
Oh, no, it's going on. Travis, don't kid yourself. People are in the living room. You're in a closet.
Well, it's our tough luck, huh?
It was an insane idea that it could be done. Although I'll say this, the idea of it was nuts. It was very stressful working on it. And yet there was something while we were working on the movie that felt like we knew our in and out. It wasn't like you could get extra time. It was impossible, which I think contributed to some of its downfall. But there was something about that like container that was a little bit liberating. It was like, okay, it's like pulling an all-nighter. Like, we're in this together. We've got it. It's like we've got each other's backs. We're gonna knock it out. We have to. And Noah was like, there was this opportunity, so we just did it. So it was everything. It was absolutely crazy. It was super uncomfortable at times, and there was a lot of fun. And seeing each other do scenes, like standing to the side, for me, standing to the side and watching the people that I know and love play and stay on script, then go off script and push at each other, like I said, and tease things out of each other that was really fun.
It was hard because even while doing it, I was feeling like, is this going okay? Because we didn't have any time. So I'd feel bad about a take, but it'd be like, okay, you do one take and you could tell like, that timing is way off. It's like, it's really long. It takes me very long to do this. And it's like, there's nothing to cut to. It's like, so not only do you not get another take, but there's no way to cut because that was it. Their coverage was this shot. That's it. Boom, you're done. Right. So, but it was, it was hard because it was sort of the end of a dream. There were some times it was like, this kind of sucks. We're running through this thing. And it's like some of these scenes could be really good if we had just a little bit more time but we didn't have anything, just had to rock and roll.
So you would the camera would be on you and then it would pan over to somebody else and you'd have to kind of turn the lamp so that it could be lit. Right. I mean, it was so much fun. And that kind of stuff is so, I don't know, it's just so energizing, because everybody's very friendly. We all knew each other, or most of us knew each other, and everybody just in this one big apartment together, hanging out. And if you weren't working, you'd chatting or reading or whatever. It was great. It was really fun.
I remember Steven Bernstein. He would literally walk around with a belt with like a stick, like a broomstick, and like a light, like a Chinese lantern hanging off of it to like light us while he was with the camera. It was all, it's like, it was really like low rent.
The film is raggedy, but this film was made at a time when we shot it on film. We had to shoot it on film. And so we didn't have the ability to move around as quickly, and we didn't have the ability to move lighting as quickly. And most important, we didn't have the ability to post it in a very inexpensive way. We had to post this at one of the major post houses in Los Angeles, and in those days that was very expensive. Today you can do it on your laptop, but you couldn't back then. So yes, the film is raw, but the film also, to me, has an urgency and a presence to it that I think is unique.
I thought the lack of coverage and the light. First of all, considering that it was shot in a week, it looks beautiful. I mean, it's crazy, and it was on film too, by the way. Yeah, I think that kind of plays into it for me. It lowers the it lowers your expectations, and so I think you're able to enjoy the movie for what it is. If it were overproduced, I think it could easily have been a turd.
I wonder what it would be like if it was an actual movie, if we had a couple more weeks to prep and realized, we needed a little bit more structure here. We could tell us like a little bit more of a story, like they always have a beginning, middle, end as a sort of, instead of these just kind of weird vignettes that we kind of have tones. Each party has a tone, right? The first party is meet everybody, and Felix is an asshole, and this person, Miles, is a doofus, and Diane is trying to go up in the world, etc. Second one is the breakup, like Diane and Trav are broken up, and the different fallout, and where are people now? People trying to hook up, people wandering back and forth, and then the third one is the sort of the denouement, the end. Felix is screwed. Darian comes out as gay. It's like it's sort of like what happens, But it would have been great. I would have. There was a lot of good stuff in that movie. It's just not. It's not complete.
There's my baby with the cake. 1, 2, 3. Everybody Felix. It's Felix's birthday. Everybody Felix. He's only the best way. Come on, everybody Felix. What?
Felix left. Good. Let's eat the cake.
Highball was financed in an unusual manner. Most films at $100,000 or thereabouts aren't financed with bank loans and completion bonds. But when the guys decided to do this, they really did it right near the end of the shooting of Mr. Jealousy. And I went to the bank and the bond company and the sales company. They said, yeah, go for it. So they attached the Highball loan and bond to Mr. Jealousy, which meant that Mr. Jealousy and Highball would be delivered at the same time. Now, in the past, if there was ever an issue with a delivery date, the bank would be cool about it. You can always get a month or two extension. But what happened with Mr. Jealousy and Highball was while we were in post, the international film distribution market essentially collapsed. And we weren't going to be able to deliver Highball at the same time as Mr. Jealousy. We were going to be another month or two to deliver. And the bank was concerned that if we didn't deliver it on the delivery date, that the buyers who had pre-bought the film would not take delivery, which means they wouldn't pay for it. So the bank insisted that the bond company essentially take over the film and complete it. Basically, it's a wrap, create the elements, and deliver the movie on time. So it was taken out of my hands and out of Noah's hands. And it was also taken out of our hands financially. The bank ended up basically owning the film because of this. And so we lost any chance for profits or any kind of remuneration because we all did it for free. But the irony of this was that when the film was delivered on time, the foreign distributors who had pre-bought it defaulted anyway because the marketplace was in such tatters and they didn't know what to do, what was going to happen. So the effect of taking over the film, the bond companies taking over the film and finishing it in a way that was not acceptable to either Noah or I. Certainly it wasn't finished in the way that any of the other films I've done have been finished. Didn't serve the purpose of what they were doing.
You know Susan Sarandon?
Yeah.
You know Robert De Niro?
Yeah?
You know Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, I've met him a few times. Nice.
How about Iggy Pop?
No.
We were lucky enough that Noah had a lot of goodwill with these actors he was working with. So Stoltz agreed to do it. I mean, it was a vanity project for us. I mean, it was the leads aren't Eric Stoltz, Chris Eigenman, Rae Dawn Chong, Annabelle Shior. The leads are Chris Reed, Lauren Katz, John Leer, Carlos Jacob, who had, now done a couple films with Noah, and Noah Baumbach. Noah was one of the leads, right?
When he pitched this idea, sold it, and tagged on Highball, he utilized what was there in every way. And thankfully, he got these people who had had much more experience, these celebrities, to join along with this project, give us another 6 days, and support us.
I was living in New York City. I had just finished doing a musical called OK, starring on Broadway. And then my friend Joel Kastelberg, he said, oh, my friend Noah's doing a film, and it's just a low budget. Could you come in and wear a funny suit and show up and be in this movie? And I said yes, because it's, Eric, Joel, Noah, you can't say no.
Because of Noah's success on our success on Kicking and Screaming, and the fact that, Chris Reed and Carlos and Lauren were all in Kicking and Screaming. Plus, there were a couple other people who showed up who were in Kicking and Screaming. I think that the financiers and the distributors were totally cool with us casting whoever we wanted. They didn't care. So, and it was really serendipitous that Rae Dawn said sure, and Ali was there. Ali Sheedy was in New York at the time. Justine Bateman was in New York at the time, and Justine was a friend of Annabella's, a good friend of Annabella's. So she was with Annabella, I think. So it was really reaching out to whoever was around, but building the film around the as you said, the unknown principal actors.
1996, I was dealing with my great career crash in 1995, where everything just stopped, and I couldn't get a job. So I ended up moving to Las Vegas and working as a magician at Caesar's Palace in this dinner show called Caesar's Magical Empire. Eric explained to me that Noah, who I was a huge fan of immediately when working with him, that Noah was going to do this other movie in an apartment in Brooklyn in 1 week with the short ends from Mr. Jealousy. And there's this part of a magician, and would I do the part of the magician? And I was like, yeah, of course. So that they flew me to New York to do the thing. And I also wrote the song, the Kundalini Rising song that I do my act with. So I read this script, and it wasn't much of a script, or not even that. I think Eric said it's like there's these parties, and you come in and you're drunk, and it'll be great. You'll have fun. Okay, cool.
So across the board, I would say there was this understanding, and I think in a way the time crunch lent itself to this a bit, where all of the celebrities that were in it, they were there to have our backs in the smallest to the largest ways, the most what would seem insignificant, or just so it saved the amount of time that was saved by Eric saying, like, you got to get your left foot over there, and if you turn your body, they'll be able to read it much better. Or if you lean into me this way, I think it'll just read much better. Or you don't have, the volume can be lower, and we can just get it across in a much subtler way. So bringing some of our theatrics, even though these characters were pretty theatrical, but bringing it down a notch. So all of them would just whisper a note here and there, which was very appreciated.
Well, Highball was just a kind of a lark. Noah just said, come on down, and where it's all a party scene, and no rehearsal, nothing, just shooting. And I said, all right, come on. I came down, and I did whatever he told me to. I don't remember what we did, except I sang it a little bit, and I did impressions mainly.
Yeah, Peter Bogdanovich was in the movie with his wife. Wait, were they married at that point? Anyway, she was in the movie too, and which was a trip. Rae Dawn Chong. I mean, I was like, she was like a sex symbol for me growing up. That was crazy. Ali Sheedy, Justine Bateman, Dean Wareham. I was a huge fan of Dean Wareham's and of Luna, the band, and here he was. It was so hilarious.
I love those guys. I think they're really good. And it was just really fun. It's been fun to support people. I think that's the joy of knowing everyone is that you just love everyone. And it's kind of a big love fest, thank God. So that's what I have to say about that. And it was really cute seeing Chris Nigerman years later because he started getting a lot of work and stuff. And just watching his career blow up. It's really fun.
I remember on the set because you would perform and then you just hang around. There was nowhere to go. And I remember sitting down to Chris Eigeman, who, I had just worked with on Mr. Jealousy, and he was like the star of it, and I had a little part in it, and we were becoming friends. I mean, he's an amazing guy. But I remember sitting down next to him, and I'm like just goofing off, doing nothing, shooting the shit, and he's reading Anna Karenina. And I just remember like going, Jesus, this is how real actors are, New York actors. Yeah, it was so much fun.
What are you doing here?
I was invited too. I'm friends with Travis.
No, I don't mean that. What are you doing here? You can't be here. We both can't be here. Who's minding the store?
Company. Company, Fletcher.
Okay, if you're here, then who's in the studio for the mixing session that started an hour and a half ago?
Oops. I'm sure Hector and Roman are there.
Yeah, and the woman that refills the napkins and the John. Didn't we say that you would cover for me so I could have a night off?
Yeah.
Right. Good night, everybody.
Oh, no.
So Noah Baumbach plays Philip, and the great thing about that is that we always played all the time as friends. We were always doing scenes. We were always doing bits, just playing characters all the time. But this was the first time that I was able to be in scenes with Noah as a character, and it was awesome. He's a great writer, so he's a great improviser. But he'll lean back, and kind of let you pull it out of him, which is a lot of fun. I think his character was somebody who was not very confident, not very sure of himself, probably kind of out to sea, really. And just trying to find a life raft, shaped like a mustache. And he found it.
I'm calling you now. I'm calling you. Just say what you're trying to say to me, Phil. You're a star fucker. Or a star person.
Well, I guess I am.
You're a star fucker?
Well, I guess so. I mean, I certainly know a lot of well-known people.
So Noah's character is him playing that kind of a role. He's so hovering on top of himself all the time. There's just like, he's just isn't grounding. He just can't sink in. And yet at the same time, he's one of the few that stands up to Felix, like straight up. He calls it, even though Felix threatens him and tortures him. He calls him on it a bit. So he's got a little bit of a fight in him.
Noah was great in that movie. I loved it. It just the tension between him and Felix, both as Felix being a jerk and then Felix being broken. I think I agree. I thought he was great in it. I thought he was really, really great in it, and it was a fun dynamic. Noah was an actor in college, but Noah always he was writing plays and producing his own plays in college as well. And I think that was his first love, was writing and directing, but he was an actor. And I think there's some parts of him that still might enjoy it. I'm not saying he's like, oh, I wish I was an actor. I don't think that at all. I think he's very happy and very much doing what he should be doing and what he wanted to do.
Why don't we see Noah acting? I don't know. I would love, I've written stuff for him and tried to get him to do stuff on my crazy improv shows. But we'll get him someday. Listen, he's great. He's great to improvise with.
I like watching Noah play. So if yeah, I think it's always fun, and seeing him in that role, seeing him in Highball is fun. Plus the fact not only the characters, but to have the history that I do with these people and watch them within those cringy characters, it's there's a playfulness in that, not only in who they're playing, but in the relationship between, and everybody kind of poking at each other and pulling that out of each other. That was really fun. So watching him do more of that, yeah, love it.
Philip, here. This is for the boy. Something I had laying around.
Hey,
Phil, that's great, Philip, boy. Some birthday this turned out to be. Almost getting punched out. Hey, fuck you, Travis.
Philip, man, calm down.
Yeah, Philip, grow up.
Shut up, record boy. Hey, that's it. Okay, neutral corners, Philip. Why don't you go out into the hall and cool down, okay? Huh? I don't have that here.
The characters across the board in Highball, I feel like it's really fun to play despicable people or people that are, there's kind of an arrogance and insecurity in all of them, both playing very strongly in each character, and that combination is unpleasant and humorous at times. So it was fun to play in that, all of them. I mean, usually there's a little relief. There's not, from my memory, there's not that much relief. It's a little like it can be a little claustrophobic that way.
It's funny. I think it's funny. Idiots are funny. Mean people are kind of funny. If they're really mean, it's like it's funny. I thought Lauren Katz was fantastic. I loved that her trying to turn this into a salon, and when she would bend and let everybody smoke and then decide that no more smoking, and I think it was really relatable in a lot of ways, because it's about that discomfort. It's not as insane. It's not like Mike Lee. It's not like just really discomfort. It's funny. It's fun.
But yeah, most of the characters in Highball are stupid or mean, and the joy of that is that you can get at a different kind of comedy that you having a stupid person and a mean person in a scene together creates a kind of comedy that a sort of tone that you're not able to get, that's kind of fresh in a lot of ways. I think Seinfeld tapped into that a lot. I think Seinfeld was probably a big influence on all of us. But yeah, the cynicism and the sarcasm mixed with just pure idiocy. It's just wonderful comedy.
There is a menace in the movie that permeates everyone's character, and feel like a fist fight could break out at any moment, or a gun battle or knife fight or something. But there is this, just everyone's at each other's throats, and which seemed sort of perfect for the time, because it was the 90s and things were sort of cool, but there is this angst below the happiness, and I think that's really portrayed really well in the movie. Yeah, I guess as a young adult, you're starting to get set in your ways, and you just become mean to your friends if you're a horrible person. I'm not.
I loved the little characters that would float in, like Dean, the magician, Don, as he went by Don, but it was Dean Cameron, I think. I loved him. I loved that he was. You don't know the backstory. Somehow Travis is beholden to this guy, and he somehow got talked into giving him a shot, and then he gets really angry at Lauren, at Diane for not, hey, he's a good guy, and then he gets drunk and sets the place on fire. It's like, right. If you could see, like, if we had a little bit more time, some of this stuff could have really pulled off. It could have been even funnier. It could have been great, but yeah, it's real bone on bone. Some of that audio stuff is really tough. Like, there'll be a music and just a hard cut to nothing, and it's like there's no coverage, there's no there's no transition. There's just, now it's just like that, it's like, it's tough, but whatever.
There you go. Thanks, buddy. Sure. Oh. Before I forget, would you send this to Joaquin? Just some money I had laying around collecting interest.
My God.
Car accident I had as a child.
Felix.
Oh, I regret it's not more.
$12,407. Felix, I cannot accept this.
Please. I'd see it as an insult.
When Felix's character comes back from obviously going through a major change, the writers and Carlos might have a very different idea, but I don't know. I would imagine it to be something either where he suffered a serious loss, or more likely he had, maybe he maybe he got his ass kicked. Maybe he just got the shit beat out of him.
Felix, between Halloween and New Year's, went through something. I mean, I'm going to guess that he tried hallucinogens, because the only way you can justify a psychic change like what he had, that dark sort of turn. I think he had a really terrible experience with those. What are those tomatoes that they eat in Peru? I think he did something like that just really went sideways.
When Felix comes back and is damaged so heavily, I don't know. And I think you're supposed to fill in your own tragedy or whatever happened. I think he might have gotten hit on the head in a mugging or something and just never really recovered. But he's so amazing, Carlos, in that part at the end. Just, God, it's terrifying. Again, it's that menace. It's sort of the embodiment of the menace that's been running through the whole film. And then it just all on Felix, and just brutal.
I think it was related to a woman, although it was never disclosed. It was never really discussed. Carlos did have that experience. I think the reason nobody knows is because a lot of that was ad-libbed. A lot of that was not scripted. So there was no way for anybody to know what happened to Felix.
Well, we talked about it. We didn't land on it specifically, but we figured something happened like this. Felix mouthed off to somebody like at a subway stop and got wrecked, like Deliverance wrecked. Like, we're not quite sure what happened, but enough to break his brain, right? So he got his comeuppance. And then him coming back to that last thing and not being, because there was a certain appeal of Felix being horrible that made Travis like Felix, like that sort of like almost sadomasochist kind of thing, or whatever. Like, so when he wasn't Felix, it was not only hard sometimes, but it wasn't as attractive. It was like, it was easier to, it's like, oh, it's Felix, it's like, but that, we love that flip, because you can't be that awful as Felix was. He was just awful. What an awful person, like just a bad guy. And then what, are you going to get worse at the third act? Like, it's like something had to happen, right? So what happened is he got just broken. He got destroyed. He got his comeuppance. And then you see us all having to sort of, how does, deal with it? See, what does that mean for everybody,
Said, hey, Mr. Bartender, has my loving Johnny been here? He's my man.
You know that guy?
Yeah, it's my date, Miles.
I was your date once.
I think there's a parallel between Sandy and Felix where, after you break up, a girl breaks up with you break up with a girl, they become awesome and you suck. And I think that was the sort of lesson from Sandy, is that she just excelled and blossomed into this amazing person. I don't know how, but she did. I don't know how, your ex-girlfriends become amazing, but they do.
my opinion is that in losing me as a lover, and I'm not sure I'm not sure our characters ever made love, but once because I was this overbearing idiot, and I think ejecting me from her life changed her life for the better. That's what I think. Getting me out of the picture. You know how when a fabulous woman is with a stupid ass dude and they get rid of him and they, explode into the fourth dimension.
The big shift she goes through is kind of, there's that Philip moment, right, that we see, but then there's a big shift, right, where she shows up and there's definitely something that's come from her relationship with Dean, where we don't know what his PhD is in, but it seems as if maybe something happened with his she was clearly under his spell. So maybe there was some transformation that happened within their connection.
I think it was one of those things where there was there was some girls in college. It's the same thing. It was like there'd be one thing, and then they'd come back next year, and they'd be like, what happened to you? Like now all of a sudden I could have gotten you, and now I can't even touch you. You're like you're up here, right? Same thing with her. I think she was like, obviously there's something broken in her if she's going out with Miles, right? I mean, it's like she's underappreciating herself, and then something happens where she somehow realizes because that was. It's again a great moment when we're playing Essence, and they're like, if this person was a bodily function, who would it be? I mean, what would they be? Shit, Sandy. And it's like, what are you doing, Miles? Like you're like, why would that even occur to you? It's like he's so terrible, and Miles is a goof. So if you're a goof being so horrible to a person, what is that person? Because that obviously she's this attractive woman. Something's going to switch where either she's so broken and so small that she's going to be like, even like when you see her next, she's going to be, like frail and whatever. I don't know. Or she's going to finally figure out like, what am I doing? Like I deserve better. And that's what I think happened to her.
I really think that was a personal choice by Justine, because Justine had a reputation. When you would see Justine out and about, she's kind of she's a very earthy Topanga Canyon lady. And so I think for her, it was a really fun choice to become that hot, sexy, leather wearing woman. And I think I believe it was her choice. And I think that was the same with Annabella. When Annabella was whatever that character was that Annabella was playing, that was her choice.
Oh, but you can't use cannon to cannon into the back. I'm standing there being announced, and this ghost walks right up.
Well, you do not live here, Travis, and the guests must be buzzed up.
Yeah, right. Was anybody here buzzed up? I think I was. Yeah.
You look good.
I'm a bum, Diane. I'm supposed to look terrible. Didn't want to dress up, huh?
Travis.
As far as Travis and Diane go, I don't think they make it. I think it'd be nice if they did. It seems like they loved each other for sure, 100%. That's the thing. But I think they both ended up somewhere else. I think she probably ended up in a better place than he did, I would say. I bet. I think that she probably found someone who saw her best qualities and brought it out of her. And I think I don't know where he ended up. Like working in a pro, Bass Pro Shop somewhere. Like I don't know. Like I have no idea where Travis ends up.
Chris and I were married when we shot.
Yeah, we were married when we shot Highball. That's right. Yeah. So I graduated in 90. Probably met her in 91. Dated in 92, probably something like that, or maybe 91. I don't remember. And then married by 95.
Well, it was certainly fun to explore these dynamics of these loathsome people together and inflate parts of personalities and quirks and in that setting. So it was fun. I mean, we were in a pretty safe group of folks to do so, even though it was stressful. I mean, it was our first film, and we had 6 days to shoot it. So
Travis and Diane definitely do not make it in the end. And this is why I think that. First of all, nobody makes it. I mean, it's like a 60% divorce rate, and that's like people like it's higher than that, I think. Two, they didn't seem to be headed towards having kids, and that usually holds them together, a little bit longer. That's my guess.
I don't think they make it. I think it's doomed. I think it was doomed before they even got married.
they sort of served a real role in their group, in this group of misfits. They were the constant. They were the ones who, it was their house, it was their party. As horrible as they were, they could count on them. Like, okay, we know we've got somewhere to go. It's gonna be awful, but we've got a place to go, and we're gonna know the faces there. And I think that maybe there's something in that makes me think like, so maybe.
I just wanted to say how happy Travis and I and all of us are to be spending New Year's with all of you, our closest and our best friends. And we love you. We love you guys so much. So let's promise to have an even better New Year's this New Year's, huh? Cheers.
It was more scripted than improvised. I mean, there was a lot of scripting going on there. And a lot of the funniest bits, like, I don't know, like the reference to the Malibu. I just thought all that kind of stuff was very scripted. So I don't know. I remember, I think the karaoke scene was very improvised, as I recall. It kind of got jumbled up together. People would go a little bit long on takes or maybe throw some things in, and nobody was really holding. Not everybody was an improviser on it. There were a lot of straight actors who did not want, necessarily did not think it was fun to have stuff thrown at them that they weren't expecting. So, it just depended on the situation. I mean, Lauren and Carlos and I were probably, and Chris were probably the strongest improvisers there. So I think if you look at the stuff where it's just us, that's probably where and I'm sure a lot of Chris and Lauren were married by then, and in real life, and I'm sure a lot of their scenes were improv. I mean, Lauren is a genius improviser, and I don't see how you could not keep her from doing that.
If my memory serves me, I feel like we really, when we were shooting, we would shoot to the script and then play. So we didn't have many takes available, but Noah would let the camera run a bit, or we would do a take again, and he would give a sharp note about how he wanted to see us play with it. If he took it off script, like if he said, okay, now go. So there would seem to be like two ways about it. He would either let it run, the camera run, and go like, keep going, or give a strong note, go back in and hit it again. But they were rewriting, if I remember this right, they were rewriting during I keep saying, if I remember this right, it was a while ago. But they were rewriting while we were shooting, with the copious amounts of time that they had in between, saying cut and action. So
there was a lot we loved improvising. I started the Vassar Improv, group at Vassar. We always were about improvising. We worshipped, or at least Carlos and I worshipped, SCTV, and so did Noah. Noah really liked. I remember Noah really liked the Saturday Night Live cast that had Christopher Guest and those guys in it. But we always loved improvising. We always thought it was great. So there was a lot of scenes that were actually verbatim for the way we wrote them, for sure, 100%. but it was all through improvise. Like we wrote very improvising, like us goofing around and then we take a line back and then write it again. Like for example, Carlos, when he's eating the chips with that's Noah's dad there sitting on the couch, and that whole scene is just let it play. Another scene, I think when he's making fun of Philip for abandoning his kid, his Amway kid or whatever, and I look at that and I saw that scene, and they let that go a long time. I mean, not badly, but I'm just saying I could see that they were just like, okay, go. It was Carlos and I thought, and again, Annabella Shore, she's like trying to get the flies off of Carlos as he's pretending to be the emaciated kid that Philip has abandoned, and I think that was that I could see that being long. There's a lot of Leer. I thought Leer was fantastic in Highball. Honestly, where I would be upset sometimes at seeing my performance and saying, "Oh God, we're like pick it up," the pacing, that kind of thing, and feeling kind of a little bit out of it at times. I really was impressed that Leer always felt in it to me. I always felt like that. And there's those scenes where he's sitting at the table, and one of the best. This is totally improvised because he's there. He's basically just talking up Ali Sheedy because he's so enamored of Ali Sheedy. And I remember that one of the best lines. I think he goes, "You like music? They say music is the music of the gods." And she's like, "Music is the music of the gods." He's like, "Yeah." Rae Dawn Chong was really fun. She had very little to work with, but when she gets revealed, they do the reveal and they take off the head of the lizard, and she realizes that she's talking to the wrong lizard, and she just starts cracking up. Like, again, it's like when you see these professional people, the people who know what they're doing, it's just like they're so good. They're just good. They're in it. And I thought she was great. And I love Justine Bateman Bogdanovich. Bogdanovich, they would just sort of turn the camera on him and he'd be like, doing his bit, and then some of it was written, like with the geisha girl who was Carlos's wife, Gretchen, who played the geisha girl. That was written like, "What are you doing? Why are you still doing it?" I don't like what you're doing. Why are you still doing it? That was written, but his thing, like Harvey, like his style, so Bogdanovich would do his impressions and goof around. And that's still kind of like, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, wait, Bogdanovich was in that movie. Like, I don't even remember, like, I was so young that I didn't realize even what was going on. Like this is insane. Like Peter Bogdanovich is screwing around with us. You know what I mean?
Hi.
Hi,
What's your name?
Louise Harvey.
Harvey. Not really Harvey, is it? That's the same name as my rabbit. Do you know my rabbit? It's kind of tall, but his
I don't know
name.
what you're doing.
Talking about Harvey, he's quite tall rabbit, but not really a rabbit. He's a puka.
I don't like what you're doing.
Oh, you don't? Well, it's a picture, about it.
Why are you still doing it?
Well, I don't know why I'm doing it.
There was a feeling of owning that place, of actually being there in that apartment. And I loved, as Travis, I loved my little bar. I loved my bar, and I loved that whole shtick about the bar and trying to make it a bar and having homebrew. But like, when it comes down to it, I offer homebrew to Felix, and I asked him a homebrew and an old bottle of Malibu. He takes the homebrew and I drink the Malibu. I keep on pushing this homebrew on everybody, and then but I won't even drink it. I loved all that. I loved that. I loved, like I said, Diane trying to make everything a salon, and everybody being erudite and all this stuff. I love Felix's nastiness. I mean, it was. It doesn't, I don't know if it plays so PC now when you look at it. It's like, it's not super PC about making fun of Noah, of Noah's character, Philip, abandoning, children in need. But it was mean, and it was funny mean. And I thought Miles was great. I thought Leer was great. I was just, watching it again. It brought back a lot of good memories.
It was the seedling and the nostalgic part of it for me. So it took me back. When I could get away from the cringy parts of it, of watching myself or watching, myself, it took me back in time and remembered what we so appreciate about each other and why we wanted to work together so much. There's just everyone was, there's something about those characters, as awful as they are, but people were going for the genuineness in it. And there was appreciated that.
To me, the thing that works best about the movie is the structure, the framing device of the parties. I love the time cuts because there's your imagination kind of runs wild, like what happens in between them. And to me, that was I really enjoyed that. I also, the rawness of it really, really. I think if that movie were shot over a period of a month, it would have needed a lot more to it. But there was something about the fact that it was shot in a week, and there's kind of this raw and sort of rawness and this energy to it that I think comes across.
I think people really love watching Eric Stoltz bring these women to these parties, and then in the end discovering that it was fake, that he's gay. I think people love that. The other thing I think people love is watching famous actors take the piss out of themselves. And then I think people really like the music. We had Dean Wareham was a music supervisor, and he licensed a lot of unknown but really great bands and performers, and we have great music in the movie. We were very lucky, and I think we got all the songs on a favored nation basis at $200 a piece. So that was great, and people like it.
I love the song, Everybody Felix. It's Felix's birthday. I love the song. That's, yeah.
Everybody
Felix. It's Felix's birthday. Everybody Felix. He's all in the best way.
What works best about Highball is the visceral feeling you get watching it. And it's not necessarily a good one, but it's, I think Jerry Lewis, like Man in Trouble, is funny. And that's everyone in this movie is a man in trouble. I think Highball reflects its time in that 90s thing where, like, looking back now, like, oh, it would be so nice to be living in the 90s again. Like, with no problems. And because there were no problems, people created all this angst. I mean, the music at the time was, oh, life is so hard and difficult, and I want to do heroin and stuff, and we're struggling. But you could live in Brooklyn for a cheap amount of money, and things were good, and everyone was safe, and it was great. So I think it reflects that 90s angst, the pointless angst of the 90s.
Beautiful Dreamer by Stephen Foster. Beautiful dreamer, wake unto thee. Starlight and moon dewdrops are waiting for thee.
Why did Noah describe it as an experiment that failed? I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask him. I mean, and knowing Noah, that's not necessarily a criticism either. I don't take it. He might be just downplaying it because, to not set up people's expectations. I think if you watch the movie and you don't know a ton about it, I think you think it's really funny. But the more you know about how quickly it was shot, how low budget it was, how it was written on the fly and lots of improv, I think then things, maybe you start to think, what was this thing? And maybe that's what he's referring to. But I don't know. I might be too much. I'm too process oriented. I had fun doing it. And that's really where I come from with it. What people do with it, it's up to them.
I agree with the assessment that Highball is an experiment that failed. Because if it had succeeded, it would have been a fuller movie, and it would have led to other similar movies. Having said that, I think there is a lot in Highball that you can see that was, I want to say, was ahead of its time, but there was many people, as it turns out, that had the same idea that we did. That, like Seinfeld was, oh, it's a show about nothing, right? You know what I mean? It's like, but everything's a show about nothing now. It's all about characters, The Office, whatever. Sure, there are some that have stronger stories. But the new type of comedy in the last 20 years, I guess, or something like that, or whatever, is much more character reliant than it is like a strong, setup, payoff kind of thing. It's, there's so many examples of it, Workaholics, et cetera, whatever. And so I think that it was definitely an artifact of some pretty good stuff, and obviously very talented people. And in fact, that's the thing that's almost kind of more sad than the success of the movie, is that there's some really talented people in that movie, they're involved in that production, who I don't think ever got to display all their talent the way that I wish that they could have. John Leer, Carlos Jacot, Lauren Katz, even myself, I'll say it myself, I think we had a lot to give that we never quite were able to figure out how to. And it's not like, oh, well, I don't feel like, I feel like I deserve what I got. Like I should have figured out how to get myself to the next place. That's not on anybody but myself. For example, Noah really revitalized his whole career after Mr. Jealousy and Highball. And he wrote The Squid and the Whale. And that is, that's going to go down as one of the, one of the great movies in history, and I wish that we could have had more success with Highball, because I think we would have made more funny movies.
No, I don't agree that the film was a failure. I think that the film succeeded in the way that it was always designed to succeed, which was as a in France they would call it a folie. It's a folly. And the proof is that even though we had $100,000 to spend on the film, which was a fraction of what we spent on Mr. Jealousy, which cost several $1,000,000, Highball performs better than Mr. Jealousy for Lionsgate. And I don't know that because I don't know that from my own experience. I only know that because that's what Lionsgate has told me. Noah's films are very polished, and this film is not polished, and maybe that contributes to his feeling of it being a failure. I don't know.
Well, not only was it the 6 days only that we had, but there was no time even on the other end, as far like, how are you going to fix anything like that? What do you have to add in or take away? It was just enough, and within that just enough, there was it was maybe not so top notch. That being said, there was something kind of courageous and successful in the fact that it got done, that it did get completed. Not the maybe the entire content of it. It wasn't necessarily a box office success. It wasn't necessarily the most entertaining, but it did get done.
It's definitely an experiment, but I don't think it failed. It depends on what your definition of failure is, and his is obviously very different than the rest of us mortals. I think it was. I think it was I think it was an experiment, and I think it's more of a hypothesis than an experiment, because an experiment has an outcome, and this was just sort of this idea that was explored, and maybe this will happen or maybe this will happen, but it just exists. And I don't know if many people love the film. I've never talked to, it's a self-selecting sample, so I don't know if people don't like the film, but I love it. I'm proud of it, really proud of it.
Is it an experiment that failed because it wasn't slick. I don't know. I think that's a pretty strong judgment. I'm very generous when it comes to craft, being somebody who has struggled and failed in filmmaking, but I still love my failures as much as I love my successes. So I think he's just a snob. I mean, I think Noah's wonderful and smart, and I love his wife. Yeah, I just think for him to say I guess failed compared to Godfather, absolutely. But it's really funny. It's like Waiting for Guffman. I mean, come on, those movies, I think it's funny.
I mean, this was one of Noah's out the gate deals. It was just as far as how it connects to his later projects or the arch of his work, I don't know so much. I would say this was an experiment that failed. No, an experiment that was really of its time.
That's reverse racism. What are you talking about? I can't believe you're standing here talking about Darian that way. That's reverse racism.
First of all, it's not reverse racism because Darian's gay.
Well, then it's just racism.
It has nothing to do with race.
Okay, it's not racism. You're a homophobe.
Why? Because I knew Darian was gay, which he is?
Darian helped you move in, man. 4-story walk-up, and he helped you move in.
Yeah.
And all the time you're just sitting there watching him bust his ass to help you, thinking Darian's gay.
I don't know, I guess. I didn't really think about it.
Everybody starts somewhere. And this was his early stuff. I know he took his name off, and I'm sad about that. I did that once for a film I wrote, and I regret it. Because then, of course, the people stole the movie, and I never got paid. Never, let me just say, never take your name off a film that you've worked on, no matter how rough. Never. It's a bad idea.
We took our names off the movie. We got a call from Noah. Carlos Jacot and I got a call from Noah, and Noah said, "I'm taking my name off the movie." Now Noah had a career at this point. He had done Kicking and Screaming, and he had done Mr. Jealousy. So his decision was, I think, to protect his career, and I don't know if that was something where he was being advised or because Mr. Jealousy hadn't done what he wanted, et cetera, et cetera. He felt like he had to, sort of shore up what he had and didn't need another, I don't know, I guess flop, whatever, a non-success on his hands, et cetera. But Carlos and I were so new to everything that we were like, well, if no one's taking his name off, maybe we should take our names off too. And I don't know if I regret it or not, because there is something funny about all of us being under one name. Like we really were a great trio. I loved my time with Carlos and Noah doing this stuff. It was really, really fun, and it lasted for a short time, but it was really fun. So in some ways, being tied together with one name, like Ernie Fusco. Well, actually, no, that's the director. Jesse Carter is a nice thing in some ways. Jesse Carter was the name of the officer who pulled Noah over on a road trip. And I'm trying to remember if he was with his friend Bo or not, but he was the cop that pulled Noah over, and that was Jesse Carter. And Ernie Fusco, I used to know who that was, but I don't remember now. But that was a person. That was somebody else that Noah had in his pocket. He always liked the name, I think.
I think that Noah, after the success of Kicking and Screaming, which was wildly successful, especially with the critics, and then Mr. Jealousy wasn't as successful with the critics, but Mr. Jealousy is a gorgeous movie. And I think that Highball was a lark. And I think that Highball wasn't the type of film that Noah considered of his brand. I think that's it. I think that there was a lot of talent involved with this film. The writers, the less well-known actors, Bogdanovich. There was a great spirit to it, and it was a lot of fun. Actually, the set was a lot of fun. And I think that that's part of what comes across and part of the reason why people like watching it.
I think this movie is an homage to friendship in a lot of ways. And I know that Noah's career is, blown up and he has Oscars and noms and all of this canon of film that's very serious serious film. And this is not. Highball is a fun frolic with a bunch of good friends. And I think if it shows anything about Noah and all the rest of us was just how much we enjoyed each other's company. And I think that maybe is what comes through in the film, is that there's like the comedy plays because underneath it all, you get a sense that these people are genuinely connected in some ridiculous alt world.
For the people who are fans of Noah Baumbach, I hope you get how funny he is. I hope you see, I think his movies have humor. I hope you understand how funny he is. He's a really funny guy and a lot of fun when you're having fun with him.
Noah's fans will get to see an artist discovering his voice, an important artist discovering his voice. And I think he got all the dark, really dark stuff that's in him out in Highball. So like the beautiful stuff that he's been doing since then can flourish and blossom. Maybe that sounds really pretentious. I don't know.
Well, I hope they would go into it with a generous heart. I think that if people are watching this film now after knowing Noah's more current work, oh brother, I mean, I don't know, maybe they'll get something that feels like they dropped into his just out of college years a bit, get his sensibilities of that time. It feels very 90s to me. I mean, being in that one location the entire time, it feels like that was a big part of our lives together as a group of friends. We had spots that we landed where we would just hang. So it would be, we gathered together, and I feel it's, and there was a lot of playfulness and there was a lot of, yeah. So I don't know, maybe it's so nutty, that project, that maybe people will just kind of get to feel like they were in a room with him for a little bit during his youth.
The spontaneity, the fact that it's so rough, the sweetness of the characters trying to find their angst or working through their angst, and then all these like super famous people sort of show up. I mean, famous at that moment. I think it really has the essence of, we didn't know what was going to happen. Like you sense, oh my God, we don't know what's going to happen. I like that. It's got a spirit and a vibe, and it's fun. And I want you to watch it because it's fun, and we're amazing.
It's a very inspirational film for filmmakers because you just get a bunch of people, talented friends together and make a fucking movie. And it takes a week. You don't care how it looks, but you get those relationships in your script, and you get good people who can play off each other and bounce off each other, and you make a movie. It was 5 days. Or was it 5 days or 7 days? 6. Yeah. So you make a movie in 6 days. Do it. Just do it. It's great. I just hope people like it. I mean, it's like any film. It's a film, but it's just a movie, and like everything. And it's a way to spend 90 minutes and have a few laughs.
Cheers to you. My husband, everyone.
Everybody Felix. It's Felix's birthday. Everybody Felix. He's old in the best way.